The word covenant has a very long history of use and simply means to come together. But more deeply, it means to come together to make a promise. Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists have claimed this language as part of their community and as part of the history of our faith. Unitarian Universalists are a covenantal faith and not a creedal faith. This simply means that we come together based on a promise, based on a commitment. That's what a covenant is. Whereas a creedal faith gathers together because they have a shared belief. Colonial Unitarians are a covenantal community. When a person chooses to become a member of our community, they are required to agree with our relationship covenant, which is we covenant to make our best effort to show respect, communicate for understanding, participate in community life with trust and commitment, and express encouragement and appreciation. This is our covenant. Well, it's actually longer than this, but this is our shortened version that we regularly spoke aloud together on Sunday mornings. It is our commitment to participating in community with one another, in traveling the pathway that we spoke about last week, the pathway towards beloved community, the spiritual practice of beloved community. These two ideas go hand in hand. Commitment and beloved community. Our commitment to travel the path of beloved community when it gets hard. Our commitment to the idea of beloved community, to stretching ourselves and struggling with the process, to stay in challenging conversations, to be committed to wanting the best for this community, for ourselves and all those around us. Reverend Rebecca Parker spoke of this idea in her piece that I already quoted, Lessons from the History of Covenant. And one thing that she stated specifically is that our verbal promises are the frosting on the cake, but they aren't actually the cake itself. They may help us keep the covenant we are in, but they are not the covenant itself. It is not the word that is the covenant, but it is our actions, how we behave, how we act, and how our interactions with those who are here are different. This is our covenant. We promise to show respect. But what does that actually mean? Listening with an open heart, speaking compassion, resolving conflict. We verbally promise to communicate for understanding, but our actions might look a little bit more like taking ownership of our language by using I statements, taking time to examine our assumptions about one another, seeking to learn from different perspectives, and selecting appropriate times to communicate effectively. Our verbal promise is to participate with trust and commitment, which in action might look like staying engaged even through difficult moments. Trusting that everyone is here to do their best, following through, and forgiving each other when we need to try again. Our verbal agreement states that we promise to express encouragement and appreciation, which in action might look like working towards the common good and offering up praise and gratitude. Our covenant is not just about the language that we speak, but it is also about the language we choose. It is also about how we choose to be together, how we choose to reframe our behavior together, how we choose to act differently and recognize that this is a sacred act. Denominationally, Unitarian Universalists have a covenant as well. As a member of the Canadian Unitarian Council, our congregation has covenanted to affirm and promote the 7 principles. Number 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregation. 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. 6, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. 7, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. A covenant agreed upon to shape the behaviors that we would engage in together. Not just words spoken aloud, but actions taken that shape our lives. Our covenant, our commitments become the way in which we journey, the practices that we use, the actions that we take as we practice beloved community. Why is our covenant, the relationship covenant that we espouse to here at Kelowna Unitarian, and the covenant of our 7 principles so important? Because these promises are what we commit to when we come together, and they are commitments, while attempted to be lived out throughout our lives, that are held to the highest honor when we are together in this gathering. While I can want everybody that I meet to communicate for understanding, and I can want my friends to act with trust and commitment, and I can expect that I will meet, that all that I meet will have the goal of world community with peace, justice, and liberty for all, I will likely be pretty disappointed. I have committed to these goals with this group of people, and you have committed to these goals with each other, but the rest of society has not made that commitment to me, nor have I made it to them. Although I can commit to always recognizing the interdependent web of life, when I witness other people disregarding it, I can't necessarily do anything to hold them accountable. And this is why being part of a covenantal community is so sacred, because we hold one another accountable to the commitments that we have made. We hold one another to a higher standard because we know that we are working toward beloved community, because we are attempting to live into our highest self together, and we are accountable to one another. As we move forward on this journey, as we practice what it means to be in beloved community, we will mess up and we can begin again in love. I'm currently participating in a several-week workshop series offered by the Dialogue Company, a company that offers dialogue methods and strategies that boost compassion and create transformation. We have been learning and practicing the RACE method of communication. RACE is an acronym for reflect, act, connect, and expand. And this method of communication is used to talk about challenging topics. More specifically, we are using it to learn how to talk about or discuss with someone white privilege and racism. Yesterday, in our workshop, we did an exercise in which we were able to reveal our unconscious bias. Not only did we have to admit to ourselves that our unconscious bias were affecting our behaviors, but they also asked us to share with a small group of people a time when we had to deal with our unconscious bias. In my small group of 4 people, we each shared a time when we experienced internal racism. One woman spoke of her own opinion about poor people living on reserves and how shocked she was that Indigenous people did not get better jobs or work hard to maintain their property. Another person spoke about being at a Black Lives Matter rally in Toronto. And as the program was winding down and everyone was leaving, he found himself becoming very uncomfortable with the large number of Black people and people of color who were around him. He started to worry about his safety, even though he was at a BLM rally. I spoke about feeling tired and feeling guilty about that fatigue, because there are so many goals and strategies and programs that we need to work on together. And introducing anti-racism, diversity, and equity work here at Kelowna Unitarians felt overwhelming to me, feels overwhelming to me. This practice was uncomfortable, and I felt shame even being asked to share my own internal racist points of view. But I sat there and listened to other people share theirs. And I know that there were 80 other people in multiple different breakout rooms that were all doing the same thing. And this helped me realize that we are all struggling with this, and we are not alone in our need to overcome these challenges. And this is part of being in a covenantal community. Our covenant is aspirational. We make it an aspiration and not something that can be achieved so easily, because we want to become better people, and we are going to fail at that. We are not always going to be able to communicate for understanding. We are not always going to express appreciation, and in fact, there will be times when we express frustration and dissatisfaction. We are all going to act out of alignment with our values. We will be out of sync with our covenant, with our principles, and we will need to find a way back into covenant. We can begin again in love. The most powerful thing about our covenant, the most powerful thing about commitments we make with one another when we are on the journey of beloved community, is that we can begin again in love. We are allowed to be witnessed. We are allowed to witness our own mistakes. We are allowed to connect with others and ask for forgiveness. We are encouraged to connect with people and speak about the challenges, speak about the failings, speak about the ways that we have come short, and to begin again. This doesn't always work out the way that we want it to. Sometimes we would rather just ignore the discomfort or pretend it doesn't exist. We would rather imagine that nothing happened, and hopefully it won't be repeated. Or conflict occurs, but not everyone is willing to participate in a resolution process. There are going to be bumps along the way. But if we are able to move toward our promise, toward our commitment, and on the pathway of beloved community, we can come back together and continue our work. Another thing from this week that reminds me of this struggle is what happens with the Dr. Seuss books. On Tuesday, which actually happened to be Dr. Seuss's birthday, the Dr. Seuss Enterprise made a public statement that they were going to cease publication and licensing of 6 of their books. Books that had images portraying people in ways that are hurtful and wrong. This is a quote from their own statement. It goes on to say that their mission is supporting all children and families with messages of hope, inspiration, inclusion, and friendship, and that ceasing the sale of these books is part of their commitment to a broader plan to ensure that their catalog represents and supports all communities and families. Dr. Seuss Enterprises, recognizing that something from their past books have caused harm and removing them from the public sphere, is an opportunity for this company to recommit to their vision and their mission, an opportunity to begin again with love at the center of what they do. They have already made huge movement towards their mission by creating books about how being different and unique and not fitting in just right. The Lorax, Horton Hears a Who, the Green Eggs and Ham stories, just to name a few. Making a commitment to step away from harm and moving towards care can be hard and scary, and also make us the center of attention for reasons that don't really make sense. But if we can hold on to the ideas of our covenant, that our actions are more important than the words that we recite, and that we are responsible for the times when our actions do not align, we have the opportunity to be accountable and to stay connected to our journey. Beginning again in love means that we recognize that we are not perfect, that we set our goals beyond our capacity and closer to our aspirations, and we keep coming back. We make promises, and we work on our commitment to return to those promises. As we do this, we move along the journey, we practice beloved community, and we practice being in community together. I hope that you continue on this journey of commitment with me. Thank you.